Welcome to another episode of Cracking the Restaurant Labor Crunch. Today, I have Jill Raff, who is the CEO and founder of the Jill Raff Group. How are you, Jill? Good morning.
Good morning. I'm great. So nice to speak with you.
We're going to get into a lot of stuff that wraps around the employee experience and customer experience. And so I'm looking forward to today's call. Before we get started, I want to thank our Diamond sponsor, Performance Food Service, for all their support of the show. They are at performancefoodservice.com. So Jill, we actually haven't talked directly, but indirectly through our friend Roger, who's also part of the show. I know he's been on your podcast, you've been on his podcast, things like that. So and I know you see some of our programming, and so this show is all about restaurants struggling with the labor situation. And as we touched on briefly before we started recording, you're in the Austin marketplace, which is a great restaurant marketplace. I'm sure you've seen for hiring signs there. You've talked to restaurants all over the country. What are you seeing in the landscape of people and restaurants?
You know, unfortunately, I think it's like everyone else everywhere. It is really tough time right now. It's tough to attract the right people. It's tough to retain the right people. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows the problem that they're having. And I think part of the problem that I'm seeing from feedback from some of my clients is that it feeds on itself, right? I think what we're experiencing is that because of the shortage, those that do show up, which we should be really giving a lot of praise and supporting them in any way possible, they're being overworked because there's not enough staff. So they're being, worked way more hours than really one person should be done. They're getting abused by customers who are just rude and nasty and not appreciating the fact that they, in fact, are the ones there showing up to serve them. And so then they have the turnover problem, right? Which there was always a really bad turnover problem, but now this lack of enough people, I think, is exacerbating that problem.
Yeah, no doubt you hit on the formula there that kind of feeds into itself, and exactly that. One of the things that's come up in a couple of the calls, and I know it's on your website because I saw it, is that it's this phrase employer of choice.
Mhm.
And I know it's going to feed exactly into what you talk about. And we've had some episodes that touched on culture, and we've had operators and so forth. But what's going to be good about your calls, this is what you guys do and so it's going to be good to hear your opinion of it. What can restaurants do in this kind of trying time to be that employer of choice when it's slim pickings out there and you got to kind of bring people to your brand? How do you think about it?
I think about it this way, Jamie. You have to not, you have to resist the temptation to do warm body hiring. I
Mm.
call it warm body hiring, right? Because, people talk about fogging a mirror. The temptation is we just need bodies in the store. We just need bodies on the floor, in the front, in the kitchen, whatever it is. And while, yes, that does appease short-term crunch, ultimately you're creating a culture within your company. You're creating an atmosphere and an energy, an environment within your people that will likely be completely, unaligned, disaligned, is it disalignment? Yeah. They will not be this collaborative, cohesive group. And it's really going to lead to bigger problems. So I want to encourage everyone to take a deep breath, stop and say, is this person that we're thinking of hiring, are they in alignment with our core values? Are they in alignment with our brand promise? Is it someone that we can educate in this way? So I don't believe in just training. We need to really educate them in understanding who we are and your particular brand, and make sure that they're the right fit for your company, for your culture. And when I say that, I really mean in terms of, are they going to be the ones to be able to express who you are to your customers? Because
Mhm.
they are your front line to your customers. So I think that's going to be the really important takeaway, is hire people who are in alignment with your values, your brand promise, and not just warm body.
I like to jot stuff down, so that's what I'm doing over here. But and I wrote down a couple things. One of it ties right back to something I saw, and I think it was like LinkedIn this morning. Like, You can't just hire for experience anymore, right? Because they may not be available, but you can hire for that right attitude that you're talking about, this alignment, the personality, because you can train the other stuff. So that's one thing, and I'm sure people are feeling that. But when you talk about core values and brand promise, what's a quick overview there? If someone hasn't captured that for themselves for their restaurant, how can they go through that exercise?
Yeah, that is actually one of the offerings that I provide to clients to help them get clarity on what that is. If they've never done it at all, I can help them establish what that is so it's unique to their brand and what they want to put out to the community at large. If they already have a core value, mission, vision, which hopefully they have, but if not, that's fine. It doesn't matter because the truth is, right now, unfortunately, those who are missing the boat are still working in 2019 models. They're still working according to those values that were established in 2019. And pandemic has changed the playing field. It is completely different. You cannot work and survive and thrive in this new environment if you're still working from pre-pandemic thinking. And so I also go in and then say, okay, this is what you had before. So let's look at it and let's keep the pieces that are really important, but let's figure out where are the gaps that are not current with what's happening in today's marketplace. And let's retweak really that your values, your vision, your mission. Let's tweak it so that you're current, not only for today, but you're set up to go forward in the future and scale other concepts with the same ideas.
Have you seen a restaurant do this really well in terms of right now telling their story, the fact that they're unique on their website and social? Maybe it's a video, at least a store, at least a paragraph on their website. Anything you've seen? Well, it doesn't, and maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be a restaurant, but I really think there's an opportunity to do those things so that if I was looking for a job, I could go to the website or I could go to your social channels and really get a feel for who you are. And hopefully that actually reflects the reality of who you are. But like, how can restaurants do it well? Or have you seen people do it well? What do you think?
I think whether I've seen a lot of things on TV, which of course we're talking about a much bigger market, but it's just to give you an example, which I think it's been done really successfully. Some of these larger companies, um, interestingly, so you think about Nike or even some insurance companies. I can't think of the exact brands right now, but I remember watching something the other day and I was like, oh, wow. I was so surprised at actually who was the advertisement was for, because I think the trend is that they are promoting lifestyle. They're promoting their values. Again, this ties in perfectly with what you were just saying, what we were talking about in terms of values and making sure those are redefined for today. The new way that you want your communication to come across, whether it's in a magazine, an advertisement, your website, especially, it has to start with your website or any other PR that you put out there. It needs to be according to who you are, what you stand for, what you believe in. This is what's important today to both employees and to your customers. They will support businesses who are in alignment with their own values. So people want to know, what is this company about? Not just what do they sell? What service can I get? What's their price? What's the best price? They want to know beyond that, what do you stand for? And where is my money going to through your company succeeding, right? Through me supporting your company. And I think that's really crucial. And so that would be my biggest takeaway in however you present yourself forward, whether it's your website or anything else. Make sure that your values, who you are, what you stand for, what you believe in, who the people are that work for you. So then people who are looking for jobs, if they see it, they're like, oh, they're speaking to me, right? Speak into their language, use their words of what means something to them. And that's when you're going to capture the right fit culturally for your company and not just resume. And you're right, Jamie, I totally agree. And I've always said this before, you hire for attitude, for value alignment. It's not just for resume, because you can always train for that.
Yeah, and it's 100% the seller's market or buyer's market. Like, anyway, the employees have the choice of where to go.
Choice.
I might be
Yeah.
saying it backwards, but they have the choice. And so they literally could sit back on their computer and go to your website, your Facebook, your Instagram, and someone else's Twitter feed and like get a feel for who you are. So you're missing the boat if you don't capture that. And it's easy because I keep doing this in all these episodes, but you have a movie studio in your hand that is fine. That's all you need to do. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be overproduced. Like literally shoot something in your kitchen, selfie style, if you feel like it. It just talks about who you are. People will get that. Obviously, it'd be great to have some good talking points, like Jill talked about, who that actually encapsulate who you are. But even just be authentic. That will really come through as well. So there's
Yeah.
lots of opportunities to do that and show who you are and become that employer of choice. Because again, if we have some kids that are becoming employee type age, right? They can go work for 50 type people right now, but where do they want to go? They want to go to those brands that they have affinity for, that kind of show excitement and energy and so forth. And there's so many blah brands that you walk into. So I would never want to work there. Why would anybody? You can't figure. And now, is it a surprise? Nobody wants to work there. So
Right.
I don't
You
know.
know,
Little rant there. Go
one
ahead.
when you just said that, it made me think about so the Johnstone family group in McDonald's, they're McDonald's owner operators in Panama City. They have done a brilliant job, actually, of conveying this on their social media. And they've taken videos of their different employees and kind of shown their
Mhm.
process. And they interview them, what they think about it, what's their favorite thing of working there, and they show how they empower their people through they're working at this group, the Johnson family group, and they actually ask questions and they show video of them working and
Mhm.
of them interviewing, talking about what it is that they get, what do they benefit from working there, how do they feel. And that's what's so important, right? The old Maya Angelou like quote, right? Tap into how people feel to work there. And I think they did a brilliant job of that. So I would recommend anyone checking back and past post from in LinkedIn for that.
Well, it's fine. It's fine. Well, I guess we'll stay here for a second. I saw on your site a little before. There's a deep connection to McDonald's in your family too, from what I saw. Right?
Yes,
You guys owned some growing up, and you saw firsthand that, right? And
100%. My parents were early owner operators, 4 years into the corporation's formation. Their first store was number 150. And so I literally grew up in the business. So it's just even through osmosis, worked there from as early as I could, answering phones at the age of 7 and working my way through. And, that stuff,
mhm.
I think we as all hospitality people, we have some certain gene in there. There's something about us, right? That we love to give, we love to take care of and nurture. And this was something that I just completely absorbed the values of what was just a startup, and not people didn't know what it was. I mean, it was a risk, a 15-cent hamburger. And now, it wasn't the McDonald's of today, but I think it has become that because of these values and because of what was maintained throughout their growth. Now they're looking at it again, and they're putting their people first, and they're making a big effort to do that, to bring that back to some of those original values that I grew up with Ray Kroc, the founder.
Right. Yeah, and it's a challenge as you get gigantic to do that over so many stores and so many restaurants. And I think a
Yeah,
lot of folks lose that over time, which leaves open the door for independence to be special too. And
that's
that's
right.
what's great about the business. So let's go to your formula, EX to CX, and how you think about that, and employee engagement, employee experience, leadership. What's the formula that restaurants can really point to?
So, I actually proprietary framework is called the Inside Out framework, and it's based on my E3 formula, which is, since you mentioned formula, it's educate times engage times entrust equals happy loyal employees, which happy loyal employees will equal happy loyal customers. And the whole idea behind that, as I mentioned and alluded to before, is that you don't just train your people, you have to really educate them first. You have to learn about them. The education goes both ways, and that's really key throughout your process. It is a two-way street. Before the pandemic, it was a lot of one-way directives, but now you have to listen to your people. You have to ask them many questions,
Mhm.
not once a year. You have to be in touch with them as to who they are as people, and that's something that you continue throughout the entire employee journey. So I do like employee journey mapping. My process is based on the employee journey. So many people do customer journey stuff, and but I really focus on the employee side. And a lot of it I start with, looking at with companies, where is there are a lot of perception gaps. Bain and Company showed that 80% of companies, executives, owners feel that they're delivering a superior customer experience, while only 8% of customers agree with that. So
Oh,
that's a
wow.
huge, dangerous gap to live in. So I like to start out by doing a gap analysis with people to really see where is that. Where's the perception gap happening? Where is the alignment missing in that? Because without alignment, you will never be able to deliver. You'll never be able to keep your people. You'll never be able to deliver great customer experience. And then often I find, Jamie, that there's a lack of expectations management.
Mm.
So they complain about their people, both employees and customers. But the question is, where does the responsibility lie? Have they, as management, upper management, owners, made it very clear what are the expectations? No one can ever live up to an expectation unless it's been clearly defined. And so that's when you get into communication. And I have various trainings and workshops around various elements of this. But in general, I call that whole category expectations management. And there's one on the leadership side. I've kind of coined the term LX, from leadership
Mm.
experience. Um, Next, of course, would be the employee experience side and the management, making sure that they're in alignment with what their owners are, and what they or sorry, what the owners want to be passed down, and what the owners want their restaurants to reflect. And then, of course, lastly, if you get all of that right, then your customer experience is going to flow much more naturally. So that's just kind of a quick summary.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and the expectation piece is a very good one to point out, and so forth. We hand people the keys to the kingdom, expect them to know exactly what to do without giving the directions and the roadmap, and that's not a good way to get there. I wrote down educate, engage, and entrust. On the engage side, you made a good point about it can't be once a year anymore. Like, especially people will say millennials or younger folks want more feedback more often and things like that. What are some tips for that engagement piece?
I think you need to just create a system, really put it into your day to day process to be able to have a touch point. You could even do a daily huddle. It's one of the things that I suggest that's been used, by many companies. If daily, depending upon your crews and your shift and all that don't work, you could at minimum, a weekly huddle, and then figure out maybe twice a month or something. You can figure out a time to get the different shifts together so that you have everyone there. And you're creating that cohesive connection when you do that. I have my another kind of motto I have is transform transactions into interactions.
Mm.
And that's internally as well. You need to transform this disconnect that's happening. And the only way to do that is to have some face to face. Now, I know that's the whole thing with the pandemic right now, but what at minimum, in a Zoom call. But I think now, with fortunately a lot of the vaccines and just keeping safe with masks, whatever it is, there are still ways now that we fortunately can do that we couldn't do a year
Mhm.
ago. Um, and so I think you have to make ways to have the touch point, to hear what they have to say, to ask those questions, to make sure the expectations are understood. And again, and it works both ways. And, another thing I've found with clients that they complain about their people not following through, and then they're like, well, I can't really hold them accountable because I need my people. Big problem. You have to have accountability, but you can't have accountability without first making sure that your expectations are on point, and you have communication. That's the biggest
Yeah.
takeaway is communicate, communicate, communicate at every opportunity, and create those situations where they feel they can even anonymously give feedback, because people are afraid of repercussions, right? Retribution. provide them not only ways in person, but also provide ways for anonymous feedback.
That's a good idea. Yeah, the anonymous piece, just in case it may be something really serious, but you feel like, oh, geez, if I say that, I'm going to get in trouble, or people are going to look bad. But it's really, you feel like it's really important. So that is a good point, and there's probably not enough of that in the system. The daily huddle or daily meeting, absolutely, we have a lot on pre-shift, especially for restaurants, to
Mhm.
communicate. There's so much going on, and don't miss this step. I mean, it's critically important. It cannot be overemphasized how important it is to do that. And I know there's people coming in on a rotating basis, so find a way systematically to convey the information that comes in and the people that miss shifts and so forth. It's incredibly important. You have to do that. 100%,
Jamie, can I just
100%
mention one
agree.
thing on that? That
Yeah.
you talk about, in terms of your pre-shift, your pre-service meetings. I find that usually it's running through the menu, making sure special items, maybe who's at what table, if you have special events, birthdays, whatever. That's a perfect opportunity to slide in there. I'm sure you've probably heard this before a million times, and probably people on your podcast, but Horst Schultz, right, of Ritz Carlton, is famous for I think it's 26 standards of service. And every day he would review one standard of service. It would go out with an email or whatever it is. And everyone functions on that standard of service. They focus on that. They live into that. And that's something that I suggest, like in the daily huddle, is highlight one key value that's important that you want everyone to focus on. And then the next day, maybe reward someone who maybe best exhibited
Mhm.
those values. And then you go through them. And then when you get to the end of however many there are, and that would be something that would be a great thing to establish when you're doing the work around your vision, your values, vision, and mission. Once you go through all those, you start all over again. So it's a never ending process. It's not like this boot camps where people are trained and then that's it. They're thrown out. They shadow maybe for a day and they're thrown out on the floor, and then there's nothing else after. This keeps it consistent. And then you're rotating through those values over and over and over, to where at that point it really becomes second nature. You really just know it, you live it, you breathe it. It's not something that's like, oh yeah, now I have to remember. Wait, what was that? Oh yeah, I'm supposed to do this. It becomes a part of who you are.
That's right. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that again, because you talked about it in a little bit different way. We talked about some of that in one of the other interviews. The idea, I think they had like 20, whatever it's 26 in the high 20s, and they go through it. But even if your restaurant had 7 things, like you said, boom, 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 boom. Okay, you're not done. You do it again, boom, boom,
Right.
boom, 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 and then you do it again and again and again, and all of a sudden that repetition builds a habit, builds a framework, and then you're off and running. So we've covered a lot right here. Parting thoughts, website, resources. Where can they go to find out more?
Thank you. My name, JillRaff.com, and Raff is often misunderstood. So it's R like Ronald, A like apple pie, and double F like French fry, JillRaff.com. And I would love to offer everyone a resource. It's how to double your Yelp reviews in 10 days.
Hmm.
And you can find that at my website, jillraff.com/help with Yelp, and we'll get you that link. Um, yeah. And I would love to just open up conversations to see what's going on in your organization right now. How can we help you see if we're a good fit? We may not be, but if not, I certainly would refer you to someone else. And I have a great cohort of 14 other people that I work with too. So we're a strong team to help you scale and get whatever you need accomplished.
Yeah, this part of the equation, I think, was probably overlooked historically because business was so easy. It's so easy to attract
Mm,
people, and now moving forward, I hope that this part sticks, where you need to really think about who you are and why you exist and why people should work for you, and people like Jill can build that formula into you. I love the I love the double F like French fry. That's good. So that's a good, especially as we talk about the restaurant stuff. So Jill, I appreciate you. Once again, I want to go out and thank Performance Food Service for sponsoring the show as our diamond sponsor. Appreciate them. You can find Jill and her stuff at jillraff.com. That's JILLRAFF.com. I appreciate you. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.
thank you.